peace is the path to the prosperity of a nation. Let peace reign. On the news this afternoon, group in Awuda West LGA says report that all flood-ravaged communities receive relief materials is untrue. PDP reverses orders suspending IM Fayose Shema orders. Governor Wike reveals plan to expand Ngoshimini slaughterhouse. NLC expresses satisfaction with cash flow, wants spending issues cleared in 2 weeks. On the foreign scene, Turkey approves Finland NATO membership bid. I am Kalada Kurubatibo. Good afternoon. President of Ngeni Youth Assembly in Awuda West Local Government Area of River State, Okenya Onem, has described as untrue a statement by the chairman of the State Flood Task Force, George Nweke, that all flood-ravaged communities receive relief materials from the task force. Mr. Onem, in an interview with our correspondent, claimed that the supposed relief materials were only distributed to people as part of election palliative.
The man is not fair coming on air to see that the relief material that was sent went across the whole community. That is a blatant lie. My own community, Udoda, Igubia, and other communities in Ngeni Kingdom did not receive anything from the committee. They never received anything. Rather, they used it as a palliative for an election. It was just of recent during the election that they were distributing rice and other food items to the people.
Recall that the chairman of the Flood Management Task Force in River State, George Nweke, denied claims that resources meant for flood victims in the Orashi region did not get to them. Mr. Nweke told our correspondent that the committee reached out to all communities affected by the flood.
I was put as the chairman of that committee. Chairman of Ahoda West was also a member of the committee because local government was flooded. The chairman of Ahoda East was also a member of the committee. The chairman of Obebe Maitana local government was also a member of the committee. The chairman of Abu Adwal was also a member of the committee. The chairman of Emoha was also a member of the committee. These are the people that represent their people. And when this happened, we started work. All the chairmen performed well. They opened camps where people were sheltered. This person talking now, does he know he has the local government? Will he tell me that people from his community, his councillor, was not in the situation room? Or maybe he was somewhere in Port Harcourt and wanted to bring food for him in Port Harcourt. For all the people who were in camps in Ahoda East, Ahoda West, Obebema, Abu Adwal, Emoha local government, Kotoro local government, we visited personally.
A community leader, Enyata Abieba, had alleged that the victims of last year's flood disaster in his community did not get any attention from the government. This is as victims of last year's flood disaster in the Orashi region continue to call for support. Meanwhile, Action Aid Nigeria has called on state governments to intensify all efforts towards mitigating the effects of flooding. Briefing newsmen in Abuja yesterday, the organization's country director, Ene Obi, said the call became necessary following a prediction by the Nigerian Meteorological Agency of serious flooding in some parts of the country. Ms. Obi, who was represented by the Action Aid Nigeria's Director of Programs, Sueba Dankabo, said there is need for the affected states to increase awareness on the dangers of flooding and also make necessary logistic arrangements that will curtail the effects of the natural disaster. She also appealed to the federal government and all other stakeholders to ensure that their contingency plan for the floods commiserates with the level of impact.
It is so sad that in the last 15 years, Nigeria has been experiencing flood, and each year the intensity is increasing. We are not seeing commensurate action from governments. When these floods happen, there is a lot of destruction. The disruption in terms of movement, people lost their livelihoods, we lost lives. This 2022 flood presented the worst scenario in the history of floods in Nigeria. Yet, the response was not commensurate to the impact in the lives of people.
Moving on, River State Governor Nyesom Wike has announced the expansion of the abattoir being constructed in Ngoshimini community, Rumeme, to include an open space market and a motor park. Governor Wike said this while inspecting the site yesterday. He frowned at the slow pace of work at the abattoir. Speaking to residents during the inspection, Governor Wike said the extent of work already achieved on the project does not meet his expectation because the entire 100% contract sum had been paid to the contractor. As you may know, the abattoir is designed with the capacity to slaughter 400 cattle, 1,500 goats and sheep in one day. Governor Wike inspected the meat mart, administrative building, internal roads, shore protection work, veterinary clinics and the laboratory structures that will check the health of animals before and also the tissues when being slaughtered. The governor also inspected the progress of work done at the magistrate court premises along Moscow Road in Port Harcourt. He said the project should have been completed by December 2022, but the delay was caused by some minor amendments made on the structural work. He said the contractor will complete the external works and hand it over by the end of April because the interior furnishing is completed. The governor said the magistrate court will be the best in the country, and the chief judge, who he said is in charge of the judiciary, has to budget for the yearly maintenance of the magistrate courts. Some staff of the River State Transport Company (RTC) are pleading with the River State government to review and reopen the River State Transport Company, which has been locked up for over 3 years. Some of the staff who spoke to our correspondent said it has been very difficult for them to survive.
ROTC has been shut down for 3 years plus now, keeping the entire workers stranded and hopeless. It has been hell. Most of our staffs have died. Out of simple things that they can take care of, we are still working.
Some of us here don't spend 15 years here, 20 years for this ROTC work. So waiting at the beg and be say this ROTC no go forget us so that we go smile. With almost 300 workers, so we no get to where we go work again. And look our age and look at what we do, making help us. And if our workers, some of them they die, but we see the hope to open the place for us, take good care of us. Now be our hope and our faith. We are the new. I know that he can use this moment now to reshuffle things as a man of caliber. We know him as somebody that can solve matter. Can use these 2 months to bring back ROTC to life again.
Away from that, the governor of Abia State, Okezie Ikpeazu, has identified the Peter Obi effect as one of the major reasons his party, the PDP, lost the governorship election in the state, saying that he predicted it. Governor Ikpeazu, who also lost the senatorial bid, said he informed his party to anticipate the Peter Obi effect at the poll. The governor said he never personally campaigned against the former Anambra State governor, as all he wanted was a president from the southern region of the country. The PDP National Working Committee, led by the acting national chairman Umar Damagam, has reversed the suspension of the party's chieftains, including the former Ekiti State governor Ayodele Fayose and a former president of the Senate, Pius Ayim. The party's national publicity secretary, Degbo Olagunagba, in a statement said the suspension of other party leaders such as the former Katsina State governor, Ibrahim Shema, a Benue State chieftain, Dennis Itiavia, and Aslam Aliyu of Zamfara State was also reversed. Also yesterday, the Benue State Working Committee of the PDP suspended the executive of the party in the Igyorov ward of the Boko local government area of the state. As you may know, 5 PDP governors, known as G5, had insisted that Senator Ayim must resign to pave the way for a southerner as the national chairman, and withdrew their support for the party's candidate Atiku Abubakar. Still ahead, NLC says it is satisfied with cash flow once spending issues cleared in 2 weeks. Stay tuned as we go for a quick commercial break.
You are tuned in to
Nigeria Info. We'll be right back.
Welcome back now to the rest of the newscast. A lawyer, Richard Wokucha, has urged the Department of State Services, DSS, to treat with seriousness the treasonable plot by some persons to install an interim government in the country. Professor Wokucha, a lecturer at the Department of Public Law, Rivers State University, said this in an interview with correspondent Emeka Otuka while reacting to the statement by the spokesman for the DSS, Peter Afunaya, that the agency had identified some key players in the plot to install an interim government. He said DSS should ensure that the law takes its course.
The proper thing should be to invite those persons. It is dangerous because we all have ideas of what we think should be done. And if we are allowed to run with our ideas, then everybody will be at the mercy of every other person. And that's not right. There are legal procedures for responding to issues, and that should be taken. I think that one of the things we have done badly, even up to the period of this election, is in not enforcing the laws. So if there are things going wrong, the DSS should act. Leave the rhetorics and advice to National Orientation Agency. Do your work. Invite the persons and caution them against fanning that ember of crisis in the country.
A federal high court in Abuja has dismissed a suit by the leader of the Islamic movement of Nigeria, Sheikh Ibrahim El-Zakzaki, and his wife, Zina, seeking to compel the National Immigration Service to issue them international passports. Delivering judgment, Justice Obiora Egutu held that the applicants did not provide sufficient evidence to show that their passports were either seized, destroyed, lost, or the relevant agency was unwilling to reissue them another one. Yesterday, police clashed with members of the Islamic movement of Nigeria, otherwise known as Shiite. It followed a protest by the Shiite members who stormed major roads in the heart of Abuja early yesterday to demand the reversal of the travel ban on their leader, Sheikh Ibrahim El-Zakzaki. Speaking to correspondent John Emmanuel, the Secretary Academic Forum of the Islamic Movement of Nigeria, Abdullahi Musa, said the procession was aimed at forcing the government to restore the international passport of the IMN leader to enable him travel abroad for medical treatment. In business, the Nigeria Labour Congress (NLC) has expressed satisfaction with efforts geared towards increasing cash flow around the country. It follows the nationwide scarcity occasioned by the Naira redesign and cash swap policy of the Central Bank of Nigeria (CBN). Speaking on Channels TV, President of the NLC, Joe Ajero, said the NLC will monitor banks for the next 2 weeks to ensure that they are dispensing cash to Nigerians. In entertainment, veteran Nollywood actor Pete Udoche has extolled the qualities of his late grandson, Kambilina Chukwu Edochie, saying he was accomplished even at a young age. Kambilina Chukwu was the son of Nollywood actor Yul Edochie. The 16-year-old boy who suffered a seizure while playing football died on Thursday morning. In sports, a South African parole board is to consider whether former Paralympic star and convicted murderer Oscar Pistorius can be released from jail. He has so far served half of his 13-year sentence for murdering his girlfriend Riva Steenkamp in 2013.
And now we'll bring you news from around the world.
Finland will become the 31st member of NATO after Turkey's parliament voted to approve its application. Turkey had delayed Finland's bid to join the war defensive against terrorists. Sweden, which applied to join NATO at the same time last May, is still being blocked by Turkey by similar complaints. In a statement following the vote, the Finnish cabinet said joining the alliance will strengthen the country's security and improve stability and security in the region. On the news this afternoon, you heard Group in Awodo LJ says the report that all flood-ravaged communities received materials is true. Governor Wike has revealed plan to expand in Bush Slaughterhouse. PDP has reversed the ordering Ayim Aisha Chima orders. NLC expresses satisfaction with cash flow spending issues cleared in 2 weeks. On the Turkey approves land NATO membership bid. The news are detailed by Felry, extending Port Harcourt this afternoon. Remember, this is the path to the prosperity of a nation. Let peace reign. I'm Alada Kabativo. Good afternoon.